Welcome back, everyone, to the SPL as we move into set number 2 for today. A beautiful Saturday. It's Gormizer, it's Trelly, and it's going to be the Titans and the Warriors going up against each other. I think an incredible matchup that we're going to be able to watch. But of course, first off, I want to make sure that we tell you all about Prime Gaming and all of the fun things that you can get with them, as not including, but not limited to, there we go, their free monthly sub, free game content, as well as just straight up free games every month. And of course, all of the other things that you can get with Prime, such as free shipping, access to a ton of video backlogs, things like that. So make sure that if you're not a Prime member, you're getting in on it now. And if you are a Prime member, you're capitalizing on it as much as possible. There's a crown over there. Click on it. You'll see what I mean. Trelly, though, we're about to jump into what I think is going to be a very interesting set, because the team behind you, the Warriors, has been a little bit on the rise, as we saw them earlier. They were getting their ping-pong pregame going, so we know they're in the zone. Titans, it's been a little rocky. Sometimes it's been like draft decisions, trying things out, and if there's a team that's been experimenting, it has been the Titans. So I'm excited to see what they have for us today.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. I think they have been experimenting. They just came off of this early on in the phase, off this Masters win, and then they're trying different things. The meta sort of shifted in a way that no one really knows exactly what's going on, and some teams, more so than others, have figured out their play style.
Well, we got schedule, as you can see here. Yesterday, if you missed out, 5 games were played. Scarabs find their first 2-0 of the year over the Valkyries. The Bolts beat the Dragons for the second time this phase. And if you were watching just now, the Kings with a very, very clean set up against the Leviathans there. With only maybe a couple of slumps for them. Warriors, Titans, where we're going next. And tomorrow, the 3-4-3. Leviathans, Dragons, Kings, Scarabs, Bolts, and Valkyries to close out week number 6. Only a couple more weeks of play after this one. Then Phase 2 is done. We're talking about Masters. We're looking forward to Lands. Then we're looking at Phase 3s. And, of course, the path to Worlds from that point forward. 9-1 at the top, untouched, are the Kings. But we're looking a little lower, the 3rd and the 5th as of right now. 6-3 for the Warriors, 4-5 for the Titans. So you get a little closer to even if the Warriors lose this one, and straight up even if the Titans win this one. Or you start to skew a little closer to the Bolts if you're the Warriors and you find yourselves a win.
Yeah, we're in a position where the Titans could fall to 4-6 if they don't bring their best game of SMITE here, which is just wild, again, given the way that they have started. Off the back of that Masters win, they just looked so solid. Layers has been consistently consistent, I guess would be the phrase, up until this phase where it's just a different brand of SMITE that they've been looking hot and cold, I guess would be the best way to describe it, right? Experimenting different styles of picks, trying to figure out how to play their best version of SMITE, trying to play their style. And it's been a lot of reactive play style where, unfortunately, they're playing 2 other team styles, and it hasn't been working out for them.
Well, I can't help but notice that the immediate highlights that show up are when CycloneSpin happens to be playing a regular carry. And I'm wondering if that has anything to do with the success of the team on this one. Again, maybe leaning a little too hard into that one, but it has been, and maybe the question I have for you, this regular nature from the Titans. Of course, this time around, we get to see what they've been running a little bit more often. Layers here is on the Ravana, but having that warrior over in the duo lane, when Sa gets the Uller, it feels like it balances things out pretty well. But it feels like a lot of their successes and faults haven't really been coming out of the jungle either way. Like, Layers has been able to help when they're doing well and not been able to help too much if they're not doing well. So it feels like he's just kind of along for the ride depending on what the rest of the team's doing.
Yeah, I don't know how to analyze what we've been seeing, because it hasn't been failing completely. There has been times when the Bologna ADC has been able to do enough that the squad can help out, but it's such a difficult job for a jungler when you look over and say, okay, I've got a hunter in solo lane, I've got a warrior in duo. Am I looking to camp that warrior, trying to get CycloneSpin ahead? Am I trying to get Sot ahead? If he doesn't get the Uller, does this comp even work? That sort of thing. So I don't envy the position Layers is in when trying to figure out how to play around these drafts, but they've got some time now where they were able to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. That this new start of meta with this mid-season patch, I imagine they'll have some spicy drafts for us.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they have to do today for the Titans. I'm also excited for the Warriors, because it's just been a hell of a terraform, a hell of a year so far compared to the last couple. And I think that guy right there on your screen, Kuvo, has definitely had a resurgence in the jungle. You go back, watch Season 7, watch Season 8, and there were some moments where it was a little 50-50 on what you were going to be getting out of Kuvo after a very long and historied SMITE career. Finally got a world championship and that has to feel great. But now has been having what I would argue is just one of the best years of his career. It's looked really good. And the moment I'm thinking of right now is specifically the 4v1 where he was the one and he managed to turn around what was surefire defeat for the Warriors. Like little moments like that. We talk about the Daji with this guy.
Oh, this
hey,
moment?
this one. Yeah, exactly. Little things like that where it's just, well, not even little. This was massive. This is a huge play. And it's just the turnaround potential that he has brought to this team and the kill potential, along with everybody else on the team. I mean, Dardez, Neil, Vote, Nika, all stepping up. I think that this has just been a great year to be a Warriors fan.
Yeah, no doubt, and fun to watch, right? I mean, Kuvo, if you ever get the pleasure of watching him, which we are about to, make sure you're paying attention to those player
Watch
cams.
the player cam more than the gameplay.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
honestly.
or at the very least, after a good play, make sure you're checking out those player cams because he's not the guy that's going to give you a smirk and just go, oh, that was a good play. He's going to get rowdy. He's going to give his team fist bumps.
He can't spam laugh or spam taunt because he's too busy standing up and like dapping his boys up.
He doesn't have a free hand at that point. Yeah, one hand is like W keying, so he still wants to help out, but the other hand's like giving
fist
some
bumps ready
fist bumps
around
all around,
everywhere.
making sure the team morale is at an all-time high.
Chairs everywhere are frightened.
Oh yeah, they're terrified that he's just gonna give him a solid right hook to the chair there. I mean, yeah, he's just great energy, and I think the team as a whole definitely benefits from it.
It's been fun to watch, and like you said, I think the very important part of it is that it benefits everybody, right? I mean, his mood elevates everybody. And it can't be said the other way. If Kuvo's having a bad day, I'm certain that kind of can bring things down. But you got NeilMah, whose passive is making sure that the worst is usually net neutral.
I mean, that's interesting that you bring up Kuvo and Neil because I got a chance to sit down with both of them before this, and they're gonna give us some insight, not about the gameplay, but you know, you'll see. What's going on, SMITE fans? Trelly here, and we hate Mifflin because he's gone. But the interviews must go on. So we're going to come out here, and I've got a few Oni Warriors that I would love to talk to because Mifflin's gone. Everyone, Kuvo, do you hate Mifflin?
Hate the dude.
Yeah, see, this is what I've been talking about. You guys got an exciting match coming up. Who are you facing?
We were facing the Titans today.
Are you worried? You don't look worried. You guys are just ponging up here. Neil?
Yes.
You don't have a mic. I'll talk to Kuvo for a bit. You can come over if you'd like.
I will talk on his behalf.
Yeah.
It's gonna be easy peasy for the boys today. Titans up next. What do you reckon, boy?
Don't speak their name.
You won't even say their names. They don't even deserve that. That's how confident they are, and I kind of feel that. So, looking at this matchup, I'm going to ask you one question. That's all you need to answer. Who's going to get the most kills?
No.
No.
No. Simple as that. That is a good answer. That's all I got.
No.
I warned you. I
It's
told you.
as simple as that. Yeah, you did. You looked at me and said, all right, so I want you to know, I did an interview. You're not going to get anything out of it. I was like, oh, well, like, I don't know. Sometimes they're silly. There's something fun. No, we got no. We got stonewalled. We got Arored by Neil.
I thought at least they would be like, I'm going to pop off. I'm going to get some kills. All I got was no. And you know what?
I think if Kuvo had spoken up first, there was a genuine answer, but Neil got in there too quickly. It was subterfuge of the quickest kind. Either way, we can jump into picks and bans here for game number 1 and see who exactly is going to get the most kills in this game. Maybe no, because what Kuvo had said prior to that was a lie. Maybe they don't think they're going to win. Maybe they think they're going to lose. And the no is that no one on their team is going to get the most kills. It's going to be the Titans.
Yeah, maybe that was the case.
Maybe I'm also reading way too far into this because I wanted more content to say something.
I don't know. It's possible that, they were just so worried about getting blank. They're like, if we say someone who doesn't get the most kills and then no one gets any kills, we'll just look foolish. But I don't know. I saw pure confidence in Kuvo's face when I said you guys going to win. He gave me the smirk. Once I saw that, I was like, okay, so you guys are feeling confident. But we see the Daji taken away, and I think that's a smart pick. We've seen the highlight. We know how good Kuvo is on this pick, so taking that away makes a ton of sense. Chen, just one of the premier, not only supports, but solo laners as well in the meta right now, and just has so much lockdown in CC, so that ban makes a lot of sense for me as well.
Yeah, so far this phase, 7 games on Daji for Kuvo. 5 of them have been wins. And so it has been very consistent out of that play. Nemesis gets banned out as well as the Chen for the Titans. On the other side, the Chernobog, the Uller, taken away from Sot, and the Osiris. Leaving open, notably, the Erlang Shen, which is normally kind of hand-in-hand with that Osiris. The Titans go for the Eset first, and we talk about flexibility. We've seen Paul play it a lot. We've seen it go to support a lot, although when the Titans are playing, usually it's Paul.
Yeah, and Paul's having a great performance on the Eset more often than not. He's been landing those sphere balls consistently. As long as that ultimate is connecting with the objective, you're usually confirming it. As long as the timing is okay, you know, you're going to be having a good time. As that leaves open the Ravana and the Yemoja, something that, you know, the Yemoja's always highly contested, but it looks like the Titans just aren't valuing it too much. They wanted to focus out QvoFred in the jungle, and because the Ravana was grabbed, that did leave that Erlang Shen that you were talking about open in the jungle.
I wonder how many. There's not enough E gods in Smite to form a full 5-man E team, is there? I honestly can't think of any more other than
say
Eset
the way
and
that my
Erlang
brain works is when I see those two, I go, those are the only two in
E-
existence until another one comes out.
There's Eset, Erlang Shen, E Chrome, who was a player in Europe in the SEC. Does he count? I don't think so. I heard something in the headset, and I'm going to be honest with you, Trelly.
I thought he said
Did
Ekans.
not register. Ekans?
Yeah, like the
Oh,
snake.
yeah, like the snake.
Yeah, so you know, that doesn't help us in this situation. But
Well,
we do
oh,
see-
wait, but what if that's just like an alternative, like Adusa, like it's instead of Medusa, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm going out. Never mind. Khepri locked in here. Feels pretty good for the Titans. Amuz and Cobb on the other side. Bologna and Freya banned out immediately. But the AMC, the Ravana, the Yemoja, all feel pretty much just par for the course right now for the Warriors. I mean, that's a good draft.
It seems so weird just coming off of, you know, a set like we just had with the Kings and Leviathans, where Khepri and Yemoja were so highly banned that there was just no way that either of them were getting through, and now the Titans and the Warriors are like, yeah, we'll just let them both through. Like that's not the kind of play style we're going for. We want to focus more of, you know, this Eset, that sort of early game play style. The Erlang Shen's going to help out a ton. And they are also going to ban the Amaterasu and the Oleron. So
Yeah.
let's do a quick look at what the Titans have picked thus far. I mean, they've got the Khepri and the Eset. That's locked in, the Erlang Shen. But so far, they have not picked what I'm assuming to be SOT's pick and CycloneSpin's pick, the ones that have been the most confusing to try and understand. So now that they know they're up against the Artio, maybe that's going to give us some insight.
What's even weirder to me is that the knowledge that more than likely those, like that Bologna and that Amaterasu, how many times have we seen Sot play those? No. Those are CycloneSpin bans
yeah.
specifically to try and limit it a little bit better
Oh, boy.
for them.
What
Now we'll
is
see
this?
what they what they can go for. I'm going to talk in the realm of realistic and what has happened. Artio is there, as we joked about a little bit yesterday, but we heard how the Valkyries feel about this god and how a lot of people maybe think about her. Very strong and potent is the typical polite way to word what they said. So that's going to be a strength for
Oh, thank
them.
goodness.
Some bouncing around here by the Titans. Yeah, for a little bit there, it was a Cucullin and a Cabrakan getting hovered over. For those of you who maybe not like fully paying attention, wondering why Shelly was uncomfortable.
I mean, I just saw
They
four
just-
tanks in Eset, and I was like, and Eset probably going to build some tank stats as well. It didn't seem that exciting to me. The Cerberus has been confirmed, so that to me should be the solo pick, right? The Khepri and the supports of the Cerberus solo. But at this point, hey, maybe CycloneSpin wants to play Cerberus ADC.
branching out.
Okay, now that we see the Cupid, there's no way that's playing solo. I mean, Cupid just does not clear waves, so that's got to be just a normal Titans draft.
Does his wave clear, in your mind, still limit him, even though it just got a buff? Got a little buff.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can body block the heart bomb and run away, and that's just never going to be a good time.
True.
So I just don't think that Cupid's going to have
He's not consistent
any
enough.
success in
Yeah.
the soloing. That looks to me like just a normal run-of-the-mill Smite comp. You know, you got Erlang Shen in the jungle, Cerberus solo, Cupid in the ADC, and I'm excited about that. You know, that makes a lot of sense to me. On the other side, though, the Oni Warriors have locked in Poseidon, and we have seen Poseidon kind of switch around. You know, we've seen Poseidon solo, Poseidon mid, jungle. We've seen every role for Poseidon except for support, so there's no way to really lock that one down. I'm assuming, you know, because Vote played it in the ADC role, we could see that research.
Neil is the kind of guy that we could probably bully into playing Poseidon support for a game. I feel like we could bring it up to him, and he might, like, he'd be just intrigued enough to maybe try it. I think it'd be convincing the rest of the team to let him. That would be more difficult than actually getting him to do it. But it was said that it is Vote that is playing this Poseidon, so that is going to be interesting because we've seen it go over to the long lane, and that's
yeah.
not necessarily uncommon. What I'm really curious is some of these changes that we've seen in terms of builds for the auto attack mages like your Freyas, your Oleruns. There have been times, it's not often, but there have been times where Poseidon has built that way and has gone a little, leaned into some of those auto attacks. But like, you know, the Bancrofts change and now the glyphs specifically that have been added onto it, some of those builds may be opening that up. I mean, it could go into the long lane and still find a lot of success.
Yeah, no doubt. But I just think the potency of the Bumbas Hammer build has just been so good, where you go Bumbas, Doom, Orb, Charon's Coin, Toxic Blade, Soul Reaver,
Yeah.
and Staff of Muzen. Like that was the build, but now that there's been some item shifts, I imagine that more auto attack could be the play there. As long as
Possible.
Yeah, because whenever your Kraken gets Aegis, you're like, oh man, now I can't help this fight unless you just have a bunch of auto attack damage on your Trident, and then you're like, wait, my Trident does more than the Kraken would do anyway. So there's just so many ways that you can play this pick. The issue, however, is that you're looking at a fair bit of dive. I mean, Erlang Shen's going to be able to get those beats down pretty consistently. As long as you're holding your Whirlpool, you can cripple out the Mink, but you want to hold on to those relics, right? The Poseidon isn't that mobile until you get that movement speed online.
Now, the question I have for you, and this is kind of the one that's been on the rise. We've seen, and you know, a couple weeks ago, it was not far-fetched to say, cool, carry's going in mid laner's going to play it, mage is going in duo, carry's going to play it, whatever. Like, their typical carry is going to be picking this up.
Right.
And so, in my mind, this feels like AMC mid and Poseidon over in the duo lane. But we have been seeing notably some more swaps where it's like, okay, maybe Vote's playing the Poseidon, but maybe they're throwing him in mid lane anyway and letting, you know, Dardez run over to the other side with the AMC. But I feel like, at least in my mind, this Muzen Cobb has been just so powerful when he's in mid. It feels like it's just better to have that Stinger in more fights.
Yeah, I think that's the play as well. Just make sure that AMC's in mid because then he can use his presence throughout the map. You can rotate over to Pyromancer. You've got Hive. You can burn that extremely quickly. Or you can just, you know, sit in lane, farm. Your 3v3 is always going to be solid with the Prod Shred as well from Stinger. So for my money, I'd probably put Dardez on the AMC and just stick him in mid lane. You get good clear anyways. You're going to have a decent time up against the Eset. You can just poke around from a distance. So I think it's going to be pretty solid in the mid lane. But, you know, there's always that opportunity, right? You just want to, where do you put your farm? And do you care if it's on your AMC or your Poseidon? You getting them both ahead, that's going to work out.
I mean, AMC kind of bullies mid lane anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, oh, hey, he's going to get his farm. Poseidon is, I'm going to go back to him because now I don't want to talk about, okay, cool, where is he going to be? Where does he flourish? What kind of builds? Versus Cupid.
Yeah.
Feels like that could be a very interesting one because Cupid's trying to dash away. Cool, here's my Whirlpool. Cool, Cupid's trying to, well, now lock down in a Whirlpool. Here's the Kraken. Unless he has that Aegis early on or beads super early on, you're going to be able to kind of leverage one or the other.
Yeah, my issue with the Cupid pick is always the fact that you just lose a lot of value on Fields of Love if the sprint is picked up, right? You're able to sprint out of that ultimate. Sure, it forces a sprint, which is inherently valuable if you're forcing it out early, but you're wasting your ultimate and then just getting that, so it's not going to be a great time.
Well, the teams are currently remaking the lobbies, guys. So the Titans Warriors, game one, we're going to kick it to a quick break, and when it comes back, we'll jump right into it. And just like that, we're back and ready to jump in towards game number 1. We're going to take a quick peek at the picks and bans one more time so you can see what all those gods that you're going to be expecting in this game are. Charlie, of course, the Poseidon is what we were kind of locked on, or at least I was locked on towards the end. Cupid, though, is one that is interesting because we haven't seen it a whole lot. Like, you know, the top 3 for the Titans, the Eset, the Erlang, Shen, the Khepri. We've been seeing a whole lot of those guys. They're around for a reason. They've been doing well. Paul on Eset makes a lot of sense. It's the Cerberus, the Cupid, the bottom 2 that are definitely a little more eclectic, but a little bit of a buff for the Cupid coming into this patch as well, or in this week, as well as Cerberus just kind of existing, good anti-heal, things like that. Feels like it could be very solid.
Yeah, I personally have thought Cerberus has been slept on for a while. I'm glad to see some play here. I don't know if it's going to be the best matchup. There's a lot of different abilities that Cerberus doesn't love, obviously. And whenever there's a Ravana and you have a big telegraphed ultimate like Stingy and Torment, it's pretty easy to avoid. Same against the Cupid. That's sort of Ravana's bread and butter, though. You're able to avoid those abilities with the overhead kick and then find your dive after the fact. But yeah, the Cupid, again, it has some good matchups here because the Poseidon is going to have to relic early on. You know, the Artio, you can catch the dash. AMC is going to have to relic early on. The issue is late game when sprint is picked up and you have movement speed or even like a wing blade, something like that, just get you out of the ult for free. So how are you making use out of that is the big question. There's a lot of big circles I'm seeing for the Titans because they've got, you know, Stingy and Torment, they have Fields of Love and Circle of Protection. If you could stack those all on top of each other, your team fight's looking pretty solid. If you're just being able to run away from those, that's where an issue might happen.
Imagine you get picked up by a Cerberus and you're like, man, I thought I was out of it. Don't worry. It's not going to be a big deal. Oh, he's dropping me into Fields of Low. Okay, well, you know what? Oh, we'll get out of there in a little bit, maybe. Like, we'll hit the mez, or, like, maybe if we're lucky, quick enough, pop the sprint. Oh, there's a Circle of Protection.
And then maybe I'm taunted back in.
And then I'm taunted back in, thanks to Erlang Shen. And the guy that we thought we could kill in the process, oh, he got rezzed by Khepri. Yeah, it would be very frustrating, I think. We'll see how much of that can actually come true here for the Titans as they take on the Warriors. We jump down to J-Mac and Mifflin for game number 1.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gore and Trelly. Somewhat of a normal draft, quote-unquote, for the Titans, and we won't even have a good time to analyze it because Layers has already struck first blood 30 seconds before the game has even started. This isn't 30 seconds into post-minion spawn. We haven't even got the buffs yet.
J-Mac, I'm going to be completely honest with you, and I'll pull back the veil for just the barest of moments. Chair 1s, you know, they talk about the action, they talk about the fight. Chairs 2, that's me. I'm supposed to break down the fight. I was looking the wrong direction. I was looking at the camera still. And by the time I had turned around, QvoFred had already fallen for first blood. I look at the relics, thinking to myself, well, maybe there's something to break down there. Maybe someone got caught out by an early sprint or a horrific emblem. Not the case. Simply didn't happen.
And Kuvo even had to go into overhead kick because of what happened. Thankfully, thanks to our production, we should be able to get a look at a look back at that first blood shortly to kind of see exactly what may have happened. Because, I mean, you're right to say, I mean, we were 30 seconds till minion spawn. This is normally when teams are just getting out of base, just getting over to their buffs, waiting to get set up. So you only have one ability to your name to go for anything like that. And with no relics burn, no horrific emblems or anything like that. Just a odd 4v4 grouping, it seemed, over in mid.
Yeah, I mean, early stun pickup for Paul, so his wave clear going to take a slight hit. QvoFred, of course, as you said, overhead kick. Not ideal, so going to be a little bit until he's got that root available. Likely goes into the Prana Onslaught at level 2. Early lead for the Tartarus Titans, but not one that they're not used to. Layers, first blood on Erlang Shen with Mannequin Scepter. A pretty standard play for the Titans. It's about what you're able to do with it. And at first blood before minion spawn, less impactful than it would be had they just killed him on first wave. Nothing for you to do in that time besides reset yourselves and go clear out your buffs. So the only thing separating these two teams, the Tartarus Titans loaded in with a slight lead.
Yeah, it's a little bit of extra gold, at least in the pockets of Layers, specifically for that first blood bounty. And
first blood assist goes three-way, actually.
Assists, at least, so maybe not as impactful that way, but even still being able to get some kills and some assists that way. Aror, the only person not a part of any of that. QvoFred, overhead kick, gets away from the Spirit Ball. Thrown out there from Paul. Level 2 now on the Eset means that wave clear will be just fine for Paul in that mid lane. He should have at least a decent early matchup against AMC. Eset feels like sometimes she is one of those mages that still can compete with that level of wave clear.
Yeah, but Eset's wave clear being kind of tied to Wing Gust makes it so difficult, especially up against AMC, who's going to swarm a bees the wave or even potentially honey it. You get caught by that slow, you get caught by a couple auto attacks, all of a sudden Dardez will have an advantage, so Paul going to have to play safe as long as Layers isn't there. If Layers is there, Paul can do whatever he wants. Like, walk up to the wave, try and get aggressive, play for the stun, do whatever it is. But if Layers isn't there, you got to be worried about the 1v1, and I would argue that should favor the AMC. QvoFred rotates through. Paul doesn't have the greatest options to deal with that until he takes over to level 5. So, sure, slight lead for now, and has the ability to match clear, but a bit more dangerous when he chooses to do so.
A red buff invade by Layers. We see that Paul is keeping his opponent in the mid a little bit busy. Layers will even pick up the red, and this could be a nice gank on a Dardez. Silence is good. The pin will get the beads away from the B. Dardez will just go back to clearing up the wave. Wouldn't step too far forward, but Paul will at least return some fire damage right back at him. And to me, Mifflin, that just screams that Layers should make that wraparound probably within the next 60 or so seconds and do it all over again.
He's got 150 seconds, but QvoFred wants to slow him down. Layers takes some damage. Blue buff invade attempt from the Warriors.
And blue buff still held on to. Layers is low in HP, and I'm not sure he wants to commit his body to going for the save. He won't. He'll just throw a pin over the wall, and it will not secure the blue. That one gets stolen away by the Oni Warriors, who were able to push that advantage. And even looking over to QvoFred, he hit level 4 before Layers had. So despite the fact that First Blood went to the Titans, Cuvo's been able to find the farm game early on.
Yeah, Cuvo's been farming up his own jungle, had cleared out those back camps on cooldowns, puts a couple of waves in mid, whereas Layers, for the most part, spent his time invading, takes away the red buff from Dardez, so does slow down Dardez's farm. But the thing about invades in Smite is that they're just worth less to the person invading. It's about denying that farm rather than putting yourself ahead. So while QvoFred was clearing his own jungle, getting the maximum farm he could, Layers was putting his team ahead, which is why he's sitting at level 3, while QvoFred was at 4. And then losing that small skirmish around the blue buff essentially loses you the blue buff.
Taunt on the Dardez, Spirit Ball, Circle Protection. This should be an easy 1-2 for the Tartarus Titans. They'll take down the mid laner. QvoFred, overhead kick, gets him away from any further fire. And that's exactly what you want to do. You're on the B with no beads, an easy target for these two.
And you still have an entire minute to do it all over again. Layers will have access to that ultimate again before Dardez gets access to his bead. So Dardez will need to play safe for a good while. Going for this slower style of build, Transcendence in the first slot, falling down for Second Blood, really slowing down your build, whereas Paul's already got the Warlock staff finished and will be stacking up very shortly. Does not bode well for the AMC. Gonna need some help from either QvoFred or NeilMah to get Dardez back in this one.
Neil does rotate over, but he's matched by Aror, who's already sitting in the mid. And Dardez probably won't be leaving that tower line anytime soon, as long as at least 2 people are in that lane. Now we see even a grouping from SOT. He's rotated over from Solo. But only Neil's going to step forward. He'll get hit by the silence. It'll just be for a greater Scorpion invade. Not much more the Titans can go with here.
SOT goes for a strange item in that first slot, Pythagorum's Piece. I mean, it's decent stat line. You're getting yourself a little bit of lifesteal, some power, giving over an aura to your allies, cooldown, just about everything you would want. But having it on your soul laner indicates one of two things to me. Either SOT doesn't care and he just wants to be able to sustain in lane, or we're going to see a lot of what we just saw from SOT, which is early rotations, so that his allies can get some value from that passive. It makes you stronger around these greater Scorpion fights. Pyromancer, generally the earlier target of the neutral objectives. Fight around SOT, you're going to be a little bit more sustainable. You can hold on to that objective a little bit longer. I'm curious to see how this one pans out and how it affects the rest of his build.
Now, one thing that Charlie was talking about on the desk, and I'll kind of ask it over towards you, is kind of the build path for Vote. It seems to have changed up a little bit. Bumba's Hammer, not as effective as it was in the previous patch. You don't get that ultimate cooldown reset like you do. Do you think that Vote's going to go for that same style of build, maybe just changing an item here or there?
I mean, Bumba's Hammer, as far as I'm concerned, was buffed. I think that with the new stat line on it, having so much power, and having less CDR, bear with me, less CDR made it better. Because now you can itemize a lot more properly. How many times, and I'm speaking directly to Twitch chat now, you see them like, this guy's got 50% CDR, he's ruining the game. And it won't happen as often.
NeilMah caught out in the mid lane, an easy combo yet again. Instead of the mid laner, it's the support who gets caught out of the Oni Warriors. Tartarus Titans are making for easy combo plays, but a response in the solo lane by QvoFred will mean it's a 1-for-1 trade out, and it took 3 to do it in mid, but only 2 for the solo lane kill.
Layers deep in the jungle, thought maybe we'd see him stick around. Seems as if the Tartarus Titans do not have timer on that blue buff, or simply don't want to fight it with their soul laner dead, so a reset back to neutral. But the Tartarus Titans have continued to push this lead, and I'm thinking they could rest, but why rest when Dardez is a free target?
Stinger hits. Spirit Ball just off because of the Riptide that NeilMah threw out at the last moment. Dardez, it looks like he was able to retrieve the Stinger. I'm not sure if Neil had the body block, or I'm sorry, if Aror had the body block to keep that one back. So at least he gets a reset. But again, losing out on those beads early on, susceptible target again for another 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, but it's going to be a little while on that 9 turns blessing from Layers, so maybe more on Aror this time to initiate the fight. Dardez is really getting the streamer treatment this game, and that's just the correct answer from the Tartarus Titans. The Oni Warriors seem to have been willing to cut their losses. Haven't seen too much presence from them towards mid. Instead, have put their all attention towards Nika's lane. That's the 3rd blue buff invade so far. Nika just pulling ahead.
Ultimate by Neil, but Cyclone able to squeak right past. He'll get out. Where's Rebuke, but he gets thrown right into the Riptide and right into the Kraken. Vote puts down CycloneSpin because the beads were gone. Nothing left to defend for the Cupid.
I love the play that CycloneSpin tries. Throws his heels into the jungle and says, hey, I'm going that way. Doesn't. NeilMah just waits it out. You can actually just put Riptide on top of somebody. You don't necessarily need to predict that movement, and grabs him.
Layers gets a pin on one, but slowed down by the Whirlpool. And the tidal wave just a little too slow to catch up to the turtle. But QvoFred goes over the wall and picks up Layers instead, making it 3-3 now for the kills on the Oni Warriors. And a red buff invade this time around. And all that lead that the Titans had built, Myth, has dwindled back down to basically nothing. We'll see if Neil can make his way out. I'd say that, but it's Yemoja. He has enough for a Riptide. Sure, he's out.
Yeah, the Warriors doing a very good job playing around their strong points. Specifically, QvoFred has cut that deficit nearly entirely on his own. SOT would love to reestablish.
And goodbye, Dardez. Another pick in the mid lane, this time at the back of SOT.
Good
Neil
root.
gets through the Riptide, but he gets rooted right after. But there wasn't enough follow-up because everything else was used on Dardez.
Yeah, as I was saying, QvoFred, phenomenal lead in the jungle, but Dardez still suffering in this mid lane. Maybe even some opportunity to put some pressure into this tower. With the Trebuchet, just got to poke slow.
QvoFred, half HP from just that Spirit Ball. Nika rotates over to maybe alleviate some of that pressure in mid and try and help keep this Trebuchet down. Nika will stand in the area to keep her from firing too many more shots, but there are 4 players of the Tartarus Titans around this Trebuchet. One of them now moved over into the jungle. The Oni Warriors will be at least able to hold on to their tower. It doesn't seem this tier 1's going to go down this time around.
No, that Trebuchet plugging away will drop it to about 50%. I like the decision from Layers there. Peeks his head around the corner, says, maybe if I stick around, we might be able to take this tower, but much better use of my time to just go ahead and farm up in the jungle. Steals away the blue, put some pressure towards that Greater Scorpion, fall back, clear out your own jungle. Need to close this level gap.
SOT, quarter HP, dunk in by QvoFred, and a couple more shots would be enough to take him down, but the Scarab's blessing there from Aror should mean the end of the engagement, especially with Layers still sticking around. SOT able to make it out this time around, but another blue buff invade. This time will not be successful for the Oni Warriors. Layers secures that one for himself.
QvoFred gets aggressive, Layers
Dardez.
locked down. Dardez, good slow, Stinger blocked by Aror, and the Tartarus Titans are able to make their way out of there. TKO on 3 could leave the Pyromancer as a viable option for the Oni Warriors. We'll get a good idea of how they're feeling about it. Instead, Greater Scorpion, still something on the map. A little bit of global gold, a little global experience. Double dipping, actually. They want the Pyro. This is much slower than the alternative, but where are the Titans? They're not here.
Now, with all 3 of them back to base, Paul sitting in the mid lane, who was trying to deal with Neil a moment ago, won't be able to get there in time. So the Oni Warriors will pick up a Pyromancer off the back of that TKO from earlier on. Paul, Spirit Ball onto Dardez, just off the mark. All shots of the Wind Gust needed for the kill, but will not find the ladder 2. And now with Layers rotating over, not going to find anything there. Gold down to 300, basically nothing at this point up for the Tartarus Titans, but experience over to the Oni Warriors.
And the Oni Warriors still need to protect their base. The Tartarus Titans will find something in return. Good ult from NeilMah. I'm not sure it's going to keep that tower up.
Nika's here, and that'll be a nice rotation in, makes it a 2v4. Taunt by Layers from his ultimate. Kraken finds SOT, the root in the Whirlpool, lock him down. Nika, credit to the kill, but the rest of the Warriors rallying around this mid lane, they keep the tower alive.
That's the strength of Poseidon in any role, is his ability to rotate throughout the entirety of the map. That passive just making him so fast. Doom Orb in that first slot. CycloneSpin can call missing, but cannot keep up with Vote. So easy walkover for the Poseidon. Land that Kraken, keep that tower up, and keep the momentum in the Oni Warriors' favor. Experience already favoring them. Gold will catch up pretty shortly if this trajectory maintains. But what has maintained for the last 12 minutes is this deficit in mid. Paul is a little bit ahead insofar as experience. Gold should be ahead as well. Dardez struggling just now, finishing up those stacks on Transcendence. I'd love to see the Tartarus Titans, if you can't out-rotate Vote, have your fight happen on that left side of the map, utilize Circle Protection, and try and force some engagements around this Gold Fury.
I mean, the death set up perfectly the combo potential that the Titans have with any two members, whether it's SOT and Paul, SOT and Cyclone, Paul and Cyclone if they can catch each other. But we haven't really seen the group up of those two just yet. It's mostly been SOT making a little bit late rotations. And a Gold Fury started by the Titans. It's a weighted coin toss in their favor as long as Paul's got the timing on, and he does. Gold Fury goes to the Titans, but can the fight at least cease for the Titans to make a way out? Aror does dash away, and the Titans are able to escape the Gold Fury pit, but can they escape QvoFred, who is dunked in? Gets some good damage, gets an ult out of both layers and Cyclone. And even though the Fury goes over to the Titans, I say for team fight wise, that's a pretty big win for the Warriors.
Yeah, the fight looks good for the Warriors because the Titans didn't want the fight. What the Warriors do want is a red buff invade and potentially a tier 1 mid tower as well. That should do a lot to alleviate what the Tartarus Titans are able to find for themselves on that left side of the map. But the timing of that call from the Titans to just go ahead and pull out the Gold Fury was idyllic. Vote was maybe 10 seconds away from getting that Kraken back. And of course, Kraken not necessarily going to beat out Circle Protection on Secure, but imagine that fight goes over to the Oni Warriors and they had access to that ultimate. Already QvoFred making waves on his own. If Vote's able to close gap, connect a stun, or even force out some of those relics, would have been a massive win to the Warriors.
Cyclone uses the beads, uses the Aegis to get away from the Kraken. Half HP still on the Cupid. But that's a lot of his defense, pretty much all of his defense, I should say, used just to get away from one rotation of abilities from Vote and NeilMah. Aror will come over to help Cyclone secure a purple buff, and he will. That's about all that they can get. I mean, we look at the deficits. You know, Paul's got that lead over in the mid lane, but everywhere else, I mean, QvoFred, level up in the jungle, and Vote, he's been teetering between 1.5 to 2 levels in this duo lane.
It's just so surprising that QvoFred has established such a dominant pace, right? I mean, remember, pre-30 seconds into this game, Layers first-blooded QvoFred. Since then, it's been QvoFred all the way down, just establishing pace, proactive rotations, diving tier 2 towers pre-level 10, and now could potentially be walking into a trap. Silence no good, so QvoFred able to evade. I haven't seen grouping like this on a mid-camp since like Season 5. Seems like the Tartarus Titans are not willing to let go of any farm on the map.
No, and the Titans will also take this Greater Scorpion, no contest from the Warriors to stop that one out. So most of this really small, kind of medium neutral farm, because when you talk about like the major objectives, the Fire Giant, the Pyromancer, the Gold Fury, would you kind of classify Greater Scorpion in like that middle category where they're not like small like a buff or an XP camp, but they're still really kind of worth something a little bit more?
In the SPL, two things will win you the early game. Totemaku and Greater Scorpions. I equate them to that Season 5 mid-camp where it was 90 gold every single time. Those are incredibly important objectives, especially in matches paced like this. 8 total kills, 16 some odd minutes into the game, not really finding separation in the team fight itself. Your handshaking objectives, Pyromancer's going one way, Gold Fury's going the other. Where do you find those leads then? It's gotta be in that contestable farm. I would call it contestable farm. Greater Scorpion, mid-camps, Totemaku, Obelisk offerings, all incredibly important. And that's what some of these teams like the Camelot Kings that are just establishing dominance by rote are really putting their attention on. So it's good to see the Tartarus Titans and the Oni Warriors really respecting that farm on the map.
5-man grouping by the Titans for the Pyromancer. They're going to use Circle of Protection to guarantee it. That's a big grouping from the Titans. Unfortunately for the Warriors, there's really nothing else for them to get. Gold Fury's already down. No chance they go for a Fire Giant right there. Not even going to try and go for a fight. Instead, we see Vote left alone on the left side of the map. 3 levels up over Cyclone now.
Yeah, I guess the Titans thought there was going to be more of an engagement than there was. CycloneSpin making that rotation. The only question mark for me, not even necessarily necessary for the burn on the objective. You've already got just about all the damage you need just from layers on that side of the map. Circle Protection, of course, as you said, weighted coin toss favoring the Titans. So CycloneSpin, who is already about 2.5 levels down, rotates to the Pyro. Vote keeps up pressure on the opposite side, gets himself much closer to that massive power point that is going to be his Bumba's upgrade. CycloneSpin needs to spend some time farming.
Cyclone will have to do so. I mean, with vote level 18 at the, 16.5 minute mark, is going well beyond that level of minute barrier that we always used to kind of put as that point of like, this guy's really doing well farming. I think it holds up even more so today is if you're able to get to level 20 before the 20-minute mark happens. Vote, not sure if he knows that CycloneSpin went through there. Maybe Cyclone stepped over the ward and just hasn't seen him go back into lane just yet. But Vote's playing very cautious at the backside of this lane.
He is just waiting for his time to actually get involved in these fights, and I think that is intrinsically tied to that Bumba's upgrade. While we're taking a peek at some of these builds, slight difference from NeilMah, Shogun's Kusari in that second slot. Difference in that we don't normally see that on supports, not so different in that we usually see that in just about every single game. Additional attack speed for Yemoja and anyone nearby, I think pretty impactful. Yemoja's auto attacks are heals, and having more of them can't hurt.
No, definitely can't. Now a big grouping of the Warriors to the left side of the map. Nika even making a rotation here. It's only QvoFred from the Warriors who have not shown up, but this will just be a trebuchet to take a tier 1 tower. SOT steps in. Seems trebuchet will not be able to take a tower. So far, two trebuchets that we have seen go through have not netted in a tower that they've been sent towards. But once again, we see QvoFred has made his rotation in. Layers level 14. Spots out Nika, does get the pin, but now Layers is the one who has to get away. Beats popped by the Erlang Shen, and it's a win for the Warriors.
The Warriors have got really good positioning for this Gold Fury. Take away this purple buff, start to peel back. You've got really deep wards. The Tartarus Titans don't really have a path in that the Oni Warriors wouldn't be privy to. But they aren't actually pulling the objective. The Titans have stepped on a ward, and the Oni Warriors are scattering across the map, looking for their pick before they look towards the Gold Fury itself. The Titans, though, they'd love to pull the Fury.
And Paul's got ultimate, Vote's got ultimate, so it's going to be back and forth. Kraken
Nice.
used, only it's SOT, Circle Protection, and the Fields of Love, both by Nika, and the Heart Bomb will deal the final bit alongside of SOT. First kill goes to the Titans, and the Oni Warriors will back away. Only ult left available to them is QvoFred. He's probably not going to want to use that to go for a Fury.
No, everybody on the Tartarus Titans are still so healthy. SOT and Iron Wall in the front, but the Warriors, they're burning them.
They're taking him down. Beads gone by the Cerberus. Fury still pulled up. Layers tanking it. He'll eat a bit of damage, and that's just enough for the Titans to back out for now. Some healing from CycloneSpin will keep the team in. The Vote is here. Whirlpool is down. Cyclone is in the back line, or SoloOrTroll, I should say, is in the back line, chasing away Vote. Half HP on the carry already. Ultimate up for SOT, but not willing to use it against just the one lone Poseidon.
Yeah, why would you? You're only fighting over the Fury, and you've already picked it up. Can the Tartarus Titans work their way out? Good stun from Paul will keep NeilMah back. Dardez on the chase, but no follow-up behind him, and only at level 15. Can't do a whole lot on his own. That is a heavy commitment from the Tartarus Titans. You've already used so much in the team fight just prior. The Oni Warriors, with Nika on the respawn, could start to move their attention over towards this Fire Giant. Circle Protection, though, already coming back up, is back up. That might dissuade you from actually looking towards it. The Tartarus Titans, though, I said it, they've got Circle Protection. Maybe you do look at the Fire Giant.
Could do so. But for now, it's just a slow grouping around Fire Giant. Maybe try and find a pick onto Nika, or maybe go for the Fire Giant itself. Aror will de-ward inside of the pit, and so now the Warriors have to know that there is a group up on this right side of the map. As you can see, everybody has made their rotation over. But with ultimate coming up for everybody now, NeilMah just a few seconds out until his team fight. Probably not at the Fire Giant necessarily. I mean, we do see some early Fire Giant skirmishes, but don't imagine they're willing to put that much weight just in yet.
Only 1,000 gold separating these two squads. Generally, if a team is feeling a slight advantage around the fire, but doesn't really want to dedicate themselves to taking the objective itself, we'll see them group up towards that tier 1 tower in mid. But this composition from the Oni Warriors, very, very strong on defense. Dardez and Vote adept at keeping these waves at bay. If anyone steps too far out of line, NeilMah can lucky down with those ultimates. So the Tartarus Titans showing a lot of respect there. Won't be able to group up and just shove that mid tower. So instead, we'll poke and prod and try and find some sort of way in around the largest neutral objective. Significant power spikes have been hit, though, by the Oni Warriors. Bumba Hammer finished for Vote, means that his CD is going to be much lower. Should be able to get pretty active in these team fights. Pyromancer pulled out, might force the Tartarus Titans forward.
Don't let a Rising Dawn be the thing that steals it away. It will not this time. Aror unlucky in being able to steal Pyromancer. That one goes to the Oni Warriors. But it's the Titans who are still grouped up with advantage around the Fire Giant. They're really wanting to try and bait the Oni Warriors in. They may have just baited QvoFred. Pin and Spirit Ball both off the mark. Overhead kick used already.
Up down.
And an up down right in place. QvoFred will be able to back away, but the fact that he got away from that essentially unpunished, that's wild to me, Mifflin.
I mean, there wasn't much left for the Tartarus Titans to engage with. The knockback from Vote makes sure that Abduct isn't finding its way home. Up, down, sure, doesn't connect with anybody, but it is additional CC immunity. Removes himself from the playfield. Still has access to those beads as well. Additional movement speed from Erendite. Is it crazy that QvoFred doesn't get hit at all? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that him surviving, not the wildest thing, and even losing out on that ultimate, not a crazy value loss for the Oni Warriors. It's already halfway back up, and you're not really overly reliant on it in the team fight. So the Tartarus Titans can have a minuscule win to their name. QvoFred's ultimate down for about 10 more seconds.
And the Titans really want to force this fighter on the Fire Giant. The fight they might be getting is Riptide finds 2, but no follow-up damage from any of the carries, so SOT will be able to walk away and heal, thanks to the help of his buddy CycloneSpin. A little bit of annoyance by Nika as he roots SOT in place to push that a little bit longer. Whirlpool keeps Aror pushed back.
Good lord.
Tidal Wave is good.
Late.
Kraken, though, going to be off the mark. Aror can get away from that one, and that's a big ultimate down for the Warriors, but they'll be coming back up shortly. SOT now caught in a Whirlpool, and this is the power of the Poseidon.
Yeah, here's the thing about Whirlpool. It's just up. Here's the thing about Trident. It's always available. Tidal Surge, always there for self-peel with the CDR from Bumma's Hammer. No Kraken, though. Not sure I love the Fire Giant pull. Neither do the Oni Warriors, who try and sink in some damage.
They will at least bait the Titans forward. They're not going to get Paul forward just yet, even with CycloneSpin here as well. A lot of damage and a lot of secure or steal potential for the Tartarus Titans. Whirlpool will not catch SOT this time around. That Kraken halfway until it's back up. NeilMah at half HP from the damage from Paul and Layers. NeilMah's going to have to back away. Even though he's got a lot of healing, he's got to use a lot to get there. And Circle Protection and Spirit Ball combo right after. CycloneSpin, credit for 1 kill. Nika finds a stun on the 2. QvoFred in the backline will ult in place, but not find anybody with the damage. The Oni Warriors down 1. The Tartarus Titans now with advantage around the pit.
NeilMah just takes way too much damage from Paul before that fight even starts up proper. 400 some odd damage from Spirit Ball. Follow up there. CycloneSpin, given that space, was able to dash forward. If an ADC is dashing at you in a 5-on-5, the fight's probably just going in your favor. The Oni Warriors did not have the capacity to re-engage that fight. They don't have that standard linear initiation. Is it going to be Nika going in with a stun every single time? Are you reliant on NeilMah finding those Riptides every single time? If that's the case, these ideal fights are going to be hard to come by.
And right back to it. SOT is here. He sniffed this one out. QvoFred will join the Oni Warriors, and it seems that they're willing to make this commit to the Fire Giant. Kraken hits. The Oni Warriors get the Fire Giant, but can the Oni Warriors get out? QvoFred, not stunned by a Spirit Ball, gets a slow, use the Riptide to hit the wall, and I'm not sure that was the option that Kuvo should have taken. CycloneSpin turns around a kill for the Titans, but the other 4 members of the Warriors at least hold on to their buff.
QvoFred nearly gets that blink off. Would have escaped had he done so. Riptide, maybe not the best placement, but still certainly a safety net for the Oni Warriors. And losing QvoFred for Fire Giant on 4 with the Tartarus Titans taking the last team fight as handily as they did, that's a trade you should be willing to take just about every single time. The Oni Warriors got plenty of gold left on the map to collect. Just tier 1 tower on the right-hand side, maybe a couple tier 2s. Base defense from the Tartarus Titans, pretty difficult to utilize. As long as you're playing intelligently around your hastened wings, NeilMah just finishing that one up. CycloneSpin's ultimate shouldn't find too much value. SOT and Paul pretty reliant on CC. So if you've got beads, SOT won't have the setup for Paul. Paul really only can use Circle Protection defensively for the most part when defending your own base. Dropping it inside the Phoenix or on a tier 2 might keep the Oni Warriors back for a couple of seconds, but that's generally all it's going to do. So I actually really like the siege potential for the Oni Warriors here. They don't need to put too much respect towards the Tartarus Titans after the initial engagement. I'm talking 9 turns Blessing, Stygian Torment, and Fields of Love. Those are the major cooldowns you're looking at for the Tartarus Titans. If the Oni Warriors can survive that, they might just break the base.
A potential base race started up. The Tartarus Titans group up as 5 to the right side. A 3-2 split from the Oni Warriors towards left and mid. And it doesn't seem like the Titans do want to take that one. And now with Dardez and Vote already at the Phoenix, This one could go down quickly, but now with everybody from the Tartarus Titans regrouping to the left, immediately retreating are the Oni Warriors on the left side of the map. Tier 2 goes down in mid, and a nice gold influx for the Oni Warriors to get back in this game.
Yeah, Dardez only lands like one auto attack on that left side. Phoenix was too busy looking into the jungle, trying to get eyes on the Tartarus Titans, concerned about ghosts that aren't there. Had he been on that Phoenix a little bit sooner, maybe it's down to like a quarter HP, could even potentially have fallen. All the damage we see on the bird is generally just Vote's auto attacks, so maybe a slight opportunity loss for the Warriors, but when you're playing on these thin margins, when one team fight could really cost you the match, you don't want to overstep. So I can't fault Dardez for playing safely there. And even in just picking up 2 Tier 2 towers, you've closed up a good deal of that gold lead the Tartarus Titans had gotten for themselves. Still an entire minute left on this Fire Giant power play. 4 members of the Oni Warriors can still proudly sport that around their belt. Tier 1 tower on right, pretty simple call. If you're able to do it quick enough, maybe you put some pressure towards this Tier 2. Worst case scenario, fall back, drop down the Pyromancer, head back to base, get some wards, and get ready for this next Fire Giant power push.
So a slight deviation in Vote's build from what we had been seeing other Poseidons of past. Instead of going for a Toxic Blade and stacking up all this movement speed and attack speed, seeing with a little bit more traditional of just straight raw magic damage in the build, even going towards that Staff of Mirrodin as the last item. The Oni Warriors will group up right and take down the tower fairly swiftly.
They're still going.
Now how can they go with the Phoenix? 2 gone from the Titans for now. The dual lane is not here to defend up against this, but that bird is not taking a whole lot of damage just yet. Kraken will hit SOT, but not find a whole lot of damage out there. It will force the Soul Laner back. The Oni Warriors will also back themselves away. Only 20 seconds left on their buff.
That Spirit Ball from Paul just stops the aggression in its tracks, lands on a Vote, and make sure that nobody from the Oni Warriors is willing to step up. Once Vote starts to back away, the Warriors do the exact same. Here's that worst case scenario though. Oh no, we got a Tier 1 and a Tier 2, and we had to fall back to the Pyromancer with plenty of time to spare, an entire minute until this Fire Giant respawns. Oni Warriors got plenty of gold in pocket. I'm expecting a couple of Sentry Wards in all of their pockets as they start to approach the neutral objective that they've already established vision on. The Tartarus Titans fighting an uphill battle from here, but the lead is not massive. 300 gold this late into the game. Tartarus Titans are winning out in the team fights a little bit earlier. Sure, the map state's different, but I'm thinking this skirmish in the jungle itself going to be very similar to what we saw just about 5 minutes ago.
And in fact, I mean, I know that we talk about how XP at this stage doesn't really matter too much, but Aror actually has 2 levels up over NeilMah. The only difference really between them is that Aror hasn't fully upgraded both of his relics and hasn't upgraded his starter item just yet, whereas NeilMah able to get that Compassion online. So maybe a slight spike of power in favor of the support for the Oni Warriors, who have grouped themselves up around the Fire Giant, but not going to pull it just yet. Obviously hasn't landed in. The Tartarus Titans not fully grouped around here, and QvoFred off to the left side in the mid might be able to keep the Titans distracted.
You know, Doug, I'm going to need some help here, bud. Which Executioner is that for layers? Maybe we'll have to wait on it. It's like the small skirmish here. Is that heavy Executioner?
Yeah, it looks like heavy Executioner.
Yeah, so he is dealing a whole lot of damage. Just need to land 2 auto attacks to get that 35% protection shred. That's for everybody nearby. Already shredding protections with Stone Cutting Sword. Has pretty decent damage output. Should be approaching that attack speed. The new attack speed cap has been lowered by the heavy Executioner with that Balance Blade pickup. I like this build a lot. Generally, I had hypothesized that we would see a good deal more defense in builds that feature heavy Executioner because it makes up so much of your power and penetration on its own. Layers, though, kind of sticking with that tried and true standard, just building attack speed regardless.
Still going into that Light Blade tree. As you mentioned, Nika dashes forward, finds a stun against SO2, finds a returning stun up against Nika. But once again, the Oni Warriors will group up at the Fire Giant pit. Only Kuvo, who isn't with the team, he's off to the left side, where all the Tartarus Titans are to the right of him, grouped up as 5. And where's the initiation point for these two teams? I mean, what is the first trigger that gets pulled to start?
That one.
And maybe that's the answer. The Whirlpool onto Aror will put him down to about a quarter HP with all the follow-up from the Oni Warriors, and not enough to kill the Khepri just yet.
No, not even forcing out the Scarab's Blessing. Nothing used by the Tartarus Titans. SOT steps up, does not take as much damage as Nika, but Kuvo in the back.
Kuvo puts Paul down about 40%. Kraken will get
That's
the beats from
massive.
SOT. And Dardez with the follow-up autos to take them down. The solo laner of the Tartarus Titans gone for 60 seconds. Layers thought he could get away, but there's a River's Rebuke waiting for him on the tail end. He's getting a lot of health back. Use that ultimate to get the Scarab's Blessing to find his way out. But Aror gets
Caught the
caught by the
dash.
cripple. The Riptide will catch him again. The Whirlpool to lock him down, and the bug is gone.
Aror just sacrifices himself to make sure Layers can work himself out of there. Had Layers just passed high and returned to base, he'd have got where he was going safely, and it wouldn't have cost the Tartarus Titans their support's life. The Oni Warriors, with their slight lead, are able to move in towards this Fire Giant. No presence from the Tartarus Titans. Enhanced Fire Giant this time to all 5 members, and no towers to slow down this siege. God, I think the Warriors will try and siege now. 30 seconds left on this Khepri respawn. This bird might just be dead.
8 seconds on SOT. If they can just walk in, I mean, it's Enhanced Fire Giant. They don't necessarily need the minions. So the Oni Warriors will group up as 5 on the right side of the map. Right side Phoenix should go easily. No contest from the Tartarus Titans. And now, do you go to the mid is the question. Still 10 more seconds till Auror's back up.
Can Aror get there in time? 7 seconds now. The Tartarus Titans have to buy some time. The Oni Warriors, they haven't got much time to play with.
Jump in by SOT. Stingy Torment hits 3, but it leads out, and his life is gone as soon as it's done channeling. Dardez, credit to the kill for the Oni Warriors, but the root has hit Nika. A pin has also clipped Nika and Dardez, and that will be enough to at least slow down the Oni Warriors. But again, SOT on grayscale for 50 seconds. QvoFred getting smacked by the damage of Paul is making this a little bit tougher for the Warriors to siege in.
They've got resustain from NeilMah and the Fire Giant, so they've got plenty of time to play with. 40 seconds still on SOT's respawn. This bird will burn quick. The Tartarus Titans can't let him in.
Whirlpool to keep Aror from dashing in. Phoenix and QvoFred's life taken away by Cyclone and Paul. The combo of the 2 carries on the Tartarus Titans is too much damage for the squishy Ravana to handle.
Can't let that happen. Overhead kick, beads, your ultimate. You got ways to deal with the Spirit Ball from Paul, but maybe not the reaction time this time around. The Tartarus Titans able to maintain their bird. Their base will be broken by these enhanced minion waves shortly, but I like this call. Not gonna have many opportunities like this to look at the map. Primal Fury taken, potentially a tier 2 tower with this Trebuchet. The Tartarus Titans can keep eyes on the Oni Warriors by generating threat on the map, and this might be their only avenue to do so. We'll be grouping up on this left-hand side. Oni Warriors probably won't defend this tier 2, but I don't imagine Tartarus Titans go much past this tier 2.
Say that. Nika, Neil, and Dardez walking in triple Riptide hit onto the Titans, but nothing more than that. A trip back through the jungle for the Tartarus Titans. 4 seconds until QvoFred is back up. Still minute and a half on the power play. Fields of Love catches only NeilMah. Not the ideal target. Kraken hits SOT. And a River's Rebuke will lock a few in, but Layers has wrapped himself around in the fight. Vote has the one to go down. SOT load. NeilMah gets himself out, but Dardez doesn't have the same luxury. He's gone. Nika finds a stun on 3, finds a dash on 2, but the damage from Paul in the backline. He's dealing with Kuvo and Neil all by himself while the rest of his team is slowly burning away this Artio. Paul misses the Spirit Ball though, and that's the end of his life. QvoFred turns around that 2v1.
3-for-1 trade favoring the Tartarus Titans, and it's off the back of SOT making a phenomenal play to avoid the Kraken. Beads in Whirlpool, up downs immediately, Kraken whiffs, and SOT keeps charging forward. The Tartarus Titans were on the brink of losing the game a moment ago, and now have got the Oni Warriors on the ropes.
It's gonna be 20 seconds until vote is up. Fire minion waves are gonna be their bar to have to match here. Can they output the same amount of damage? QvoFred wrapping around the back. No ult for him, no ult for NeilMah. 4 versus 2, and Kuvo's health is basically
burning.
gone. The Titan at the bottom is low. The Titan up top is low. Which is going to be the one to take it down with Fields of Love and Sentient Torment? It's the Tartarus Titans who have just enough damage to squeak it out.
It is so seldom that the desperation group up in the jungle back against the wall play actually nets you a victory. Individual mechanics, the difference in this one. CycloneSpin free casting in the fight. Paul sacrifices himself, sure, but zones 2 on his own. SOT, of course, to avoid the Kraken. That's a tough one for the Oni Warriors. Got to come correct when you want to face the Titans.
And narrow margins even at that Titan fight. I mean, when you got 2 to 3 fire waves pushing in at once onto your own Titan, you essentially have made you've buried yourself there. You have to make that kind of commitment. And fortunate enough for the Tartarus Titans, they had their damage dealers still up online to fight against the 2 who are not so much in the damage department.
Just a crazy turnaround performance, man. If that's what this set's going to look like, I don't even want to talk about this one. I want to get into the next game and just get going.
Well, fortunately for you and the fans at home, Mifflin, we are going to take it to a break, and when we come back, we'll get it set up for that game number 2.
Let's liven things up, shall we? Come, the party's this way.
I'm hungry!
Be sure to grab some brew.
Yes, that will do. Time to eat.
Let the heavens rain! Let's keep this going all night.
everyone, to the SPL, a heart-racing end of the game. Minions do their best, but unfortunately there for the Warriors, not quite able to get themselves that win. The Titans, however, win that race and are able to find themselves the dub and give us a very interesting game into it. Of course, that all is done because they're playing on these Aurora Ryzen R10 desktops given to us by Alienware. And of course, thank you to Alienware for coming back for Season 9. Season 8 was so wonderful that we thought we could spread the love even more here in Season 9. You can get in on this as well, going to smitegame.com/Alienware and using code AWSMITE09 to make sure that you get discounts, whether you want the Aurora R10 desktops that the players are using, anything like these laptops, the gaming monitors, any paraphernalia. Just make sure you go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code AWSMITE09 in order to get those discounts. It's Gormizer, it's Trelly, and it's, well, at least one more game of this set coming up, but a very interesting game number 1 on that one, from first blood at the very beginning to the, like, we had not even stood up from the desk.
Oh, yeah.
And it is done to the very end where it's heart racing again. Minions versus the Titans. Who's going to win? If a little bit longer there, if Neil and Kuvo had been able to delay, they might have been able to win that game.
Yeah, it was interesting because as the set was starting on the desk, we were saying, this is going to be a coin flip matchup. We don't know which one of these teams is going to bring their all. The Titans came out swinging for sure. I mean, up until about the 30-minute mark, it was dead even, right? I think 300 gold. And then, Kuvo just walking up to place a ward, and unfortunately the rest of the squad was right. Even was able to put a point into overhead kick there, but Paul with the Spirit Ball confirming the stun, and Layers gets credit for the kill.
Now, and I looked at you after that happened, and I said, well, that's the earliest first blood that's going to happen this year, because how many kills happened pre-000? I think on the world stage, the earliest is like 14 seconds. The earliest ever is at -52, or -53. So not quite able to take the entire record across SMITE. But still a damn early first blood for the Titans.
Yeah, in a world
and a
where,
great way to start things off.
Yeah, in a world where there's no more, there's Invader's Curse, where you can't walk up past the halfway
True,
point. This
yeah.
is about
That's
the
the best
earliest.
you're gonna get.
Yeah, that's the best you're gonna get. And looking at the stat line, you really can't tell which one of these teams actually won. I mean, sure, of course, Layers, Paul, and CycloneSpin, all 3 won. They're looking great. But at one point, the Oni Warriors had Fire Giant and were knocking on the door of the Tartarus Titans, trying to break that base. QvoFred gets picked a little early on into the siege, had the beads up, had the ult, just wasn't quite quick enough, didn't have the reaction time, dies, and the Oni Warriors have to run all the way back, and at that point we're thinking, okay, maybe a reset, maybe another Fire Giant, but nope, the Tartarus Titans were able to set up the old ambush. They let Paul die in the process, but all they needed was 4, and while the Fire Minions were knocking on their Titan, they were able to close that one out.
Now imagine that fight, but without a hunter in general. Like, I think it would have been very different, right? And that was something like, it's been easy to push onto the Titans and be like, well, of course you're losing. Look at your comps. And then being like, well, if they worked, is it because the comp worked or is it because they play really well? I think that they still played really well. The last couple of losses have been, though, with that warrior over there for CycloneSpin. Cupid shows up. Cupid gets a win. We'll see if they decide to do it again here in game number 2. Picks and bans, as it will be the Titans once again under first pick. Last time it was Daji, Xingchen, and Nemesis. On the other side, the Warriors banned out the Chernobog, Uller, and Osiris. Won't be surprising, I think, if some of those change going into this one, just based on what we saw.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Oni Warriors try to take away the Eset. I mean, Paul was just having a great performance on it in the early. Maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if either one of these teams are feeling a little shaky after a game like that, right? Because the Oni Warriors know they had the win in their hands, and the Tartarus Titans know that even though they got the win, that could have went either way. So you're in a situation where maybe there's a run back for both, right? Neither one of these teams have say, this is a draft problem. It was more so just, we messed up here, and here. Let's correct that. Then we should be fine. The Titans, no doubt, we're going to grab that Eset in the first pick slot. The question is, are the Warriors going to just immediately take that Yemoja and the Ravana? Or, they have a few different options there. But the Yemoja was definitely something that they need to prioritize if they want to go for that run back.
So we see that it's a 64 win rate total there for the Eset. In mid alone, though, it jumps up. This is all thanks to Zidane, by the way. Someone asked on Twitter, and I asked Zidane to pull it for just this year. 67 in mid-range, to the point where some teams, the Bolts notably, have struggled against it pretty notoriously. And I think even seeing that last game kind of got me convinced that Eset might just have, there's a curse on teams that try to play against her, because it's been working out really well. And I think that we're in for even more. I mean, Paul looked good on this pick for a while. Was 3-0-3 that game you mentioned at the end is 3-1. That one death at the very end is the only one that he cracks up. So I think this is a pick that needs to be worried about. And so far, everything's going literally the exact same. It's the same 6 bands. You've got so you've got Daji, Xing, Shen, Nemesis banned by the Titans. The Chernobog, Uller, Osiris on the other side. Eset
That's different.
for the Titans with the Erlang, Shen, and the Khepri. Yemoja, Ravana, and will you change it up? The Morrigan finally breaks the trend. And now we're not getting the full rematch.
And the worst part is Dardez was like 31,000 player damage, highest by a fair margin on the AMC. Like, he was playing extremely well. It was just, you know, maybe just wanted a little bit more dynamic presence there. So now we get to see, I'm assuming, the double Ravana could come into play. You can steal that circle of protection if you would like, if you want some extra burst damage on the objectives. The Morrigan already has some good options here. And now the Titans have to watch out as they draft, because there's no, you know, they still have a good CC ultimate in the solo lane they could grab and accidentally give over to the Warrior. I guess it wouldn't be an accident. They'd be doing it on purpose, but it could be used against them whenever they draft.
Yeah, yeah, we're going to lock this in knowing you have the Morrigan, but it's an absolute accident that you have access to that hole. No, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Titans do to maybe play around it, or if they even choose to play around it, right? And that's going to be maybe the choice they make. A lot of kills throughout the early game in that last one, wondering where the bans were going to go. Heimdall, Bologna banned out here by the Oni Warriors. The Bologna, again, not something we see a lot out of SOT. Feels like it's something that we've seen quite a bit out of CycloneSpin. And either one, whichever one decides to play it, feels like it's going to be a good ban. Same thing for the Heimdall. Chiron getting banned out. Well, to try and limit a little bit more out of Vote. And this is one that's a little different. Last time with AMC locked in, we've seen Double Hunter. It's not often, or not uncommon to see like Muzen Cobb plus, well, I'll just throw Chiron's name up there because he's the first one that I see. Things like that. But going with the Poseidon last time made it kind of balanced out in terms of magical versus physical, blah, 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 blah. And this one, you needed a Hunter. And they locked it in. They get the Jing away, which again, doesn't necessarily strike me as a Vote god, although Vote kind of plays everything, so I don't know why that's true in my brain.
Yeah, for some reason when I think of Vote, Freya comes to mind, which is, you know, a pick that has been seen a little bit of rise and he has played it a fair bit, but it's just, I don't know, it just comes to my mind as of recent, as the Jingwei does get locked in, which is going to be something that, you know, you want to sit back a little bit, play for the late game, get some crit online. We've already touched on a fair bit about the new itemization that could change up the build path a fair bit, but you got the Morrigan, you got Ravana. Your late game is looking pretty solid. Your early could be an issue when you look at a Jingwei in the duo lane. That means you're probably not looking to get active very often. And on the opposite side, there's an Erlang Shen and there's an Eset. So the objective pressure is certainly there. You're able to shred through it quickly and then have the burst come firm. As we see, the Titans are hovering Set now. Given the situation, sure, Set solo is an option, but CycloneSpin has played the Set ADC a few different times, so that's the hover as of now. Not quite locking it in as we see a bit of a puzzled look on Cyclone's face, and he's going to switch and go for the Xbalanque, which just a great team fight ultimate. It's going to be able to box Jingwei pretty early on and not really care about it. Late game, though, you might want to watch out for those crits.
It's going to be interesting to go back and look at a lot of these matchups for the Titans and be able to point at losses, like depending on what the duo lane looks like, depending on what the duo lane looks like and what their picks are. I'm wondering what the correlation between that is, because they seem to be very successful right here. I mean, look at that. That's just standard SMITE. Nothing special about that Titans roster, other than that they're all really good at those gods. Same thing can be said about the Warriors. Chulainn locked in at the very end, something that we haven't gotten to see as much this year, although he's been making his way through every now and then. Really good disruption option, though, Trelly, and it feels like he's going to be able to help peel and or set up a lot of the team.
Yeah, one of my favorite Warriors, no doubt. You just, a tried and true bruiser. You have the unique mechanic of your rage instead of mana, so if you can, keep that very well and make sure to transform in the middle of a team fight, you can be just so disruptive. But when you don't have that rage, you're just kind of like, guys, I need to go far. I mean, you do not fight when my rage is under 40, because I will not help you in these fights at all. So making use of that is always gonna be the name of the game. But when you're up against a King Arthur, you're usually just brawling in the wave. You can transform like pretty much every other wave at that point, so that you're gonna have some good pressure there. I imagine to see Kuvo try and play off the solo lane a bit. Look towards that, because you want to be able to get ahead early. You want to try and play early, looking at how good your late game is, right? If you play for the early and your late game's as solid as it is, you should be sitting fine, right? The issue, however, is that playing off dual lane, I don't see as an option. When you see a Jingwei, not too many gank options there. Xbalanque, CycloneSpin's just going to turn off the lights and zoom on out of there. Shouldn't be, too many opportunities to find a kill there. So I do expect to see Kuvo hovering around solo lane a fair bit this match.
Yeah, especially, I mean, look, King Arthur, Cucullin, that's a matchup that's just been up there for a long time. And so I expect to see a lot of focus over there. But the kill potential is really where the question comes through. Because, Eset seems like someone who's usually easily camped. And we got to see it a little bit in the King set where it was like early on, like, let's jump on big man Tings and show them what for. And then unfortunately late game that changed up. But is that something they could do here? Try to just shut down Paul and keep Paul under wraps?
I wouldn't doubt that they attempted at least once because and I think that's why they banned the Heimdall here. They're trying to go for some more stealth plays. They don't want the vision being seen. If Dardez can sneak up on Paul, get the stun, Dark Omen, and then you're fighting 2 Ravens, that's going to be an issue. But circle protection is always a thing, and now you got to worry about Scarab's Blessing. If Auror's on point, there's no killing Paul, at least in the early game, right? Late game jungle fights, that changes completely. But in the 3v3, in that mid lane, it's going to be very difficult to try and find a kill onto Paul on this Eset. So I imagine they won't be trying it too often, but if they get ahead, sure, they could always run him down.
I can absolutely see a sitcom being called My Two Ravens. I don't know what it would be about. We'll figure that one out, though. We're going into game number 2 here with the Titans and the Warriors.
Thank you so much, Gore and Trelly over on the desk. It's J-Mac and Mifflin back in game number 1. This time, no first blood shenanigans at 30 seconds, so we'll actually have. Hold on, I gotta roll forward. There we go.
Nice.
I don't know if they could hear that.
He knocked on wood for those of you that couldn't hear it.
Yeah, we're good. We're good on that one. It's J-Mac, Miff, and Doug back in game number 2. Nothing out of the ordinary as far as the starts are concerned from the players. Nothing out of the ordinary for anything really to kind of get this thing going. I would say the most kind of out of place thing is the fact that we're seeing the Tartarus Titans back on more normalized drafts. It almost feels like a breath of fresh air with this team, Mifflin, after we've seen these guys go for such bizarre starts over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Tartarus Titans buckling down and getting back to just the basics with their composition, but we're not going overly standard. Xbalanque sure has seen a little bit more presence in the meta, but still certainly not one of those top pick selections. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, there's really not much to talk about compositionally. I think the only thing we can really evaluate from here is which one of these junglers is going to get active a little bit earlier. Layers and QvoFred both playing early game aggressive junglers could look for some presence. Seems as if the Tartarus Titans are saying, hey, our mid-fight probably not so great. We're going to go ahead and do the speed start, have some potential to rotate over towards that soul lane. And, well, the Oni Warriors have done the exact same thing. Difference is, I actually think I would prefer to be the Erlang Shen in this matchup, just because you've got some pretty clear gank potential. Nika, to a certain extent, after this first wave of transformation, might be a pretty good target for Layers. Similarly, Dardez doesn't really have the greatest options to stealth away. As long as you're holding onto that pin, you're going to hit him. Just aim for the what is it called, like a decoy?
Yeah,
aim for the decoy the second it spawns, and you're going to hit both. And, well, you only need 1 tick of damage to knock out a stealth. So I'm expecting Layers to set a pretty blazing pace early on. Whereas QvoFred, you're waiting a couple of items till he's getting active.
Yeah, wait till that level 5 hits, maybe jump on one of these lanes at some point earlier on. And it's something that we saw Kuvo do last game where he went down for first blood right at the beginning of the game. Didn't matter too much. And then Kuvo just went power farm mode and was able to out-farm Layers who had gotten that first blood bounty. The only difference was that Dardez was suffering a little bit the farm in the mid lane because of the lead that Layers had established for himself, at least in that portion. So for now, the Oni Warriors' pressure at least goes towards the dual lane, which is something you typically don't see of a Jingwei, but as we've seen in the past, as long as you got a Yemoja, just about any lane can be a winning lane for you.
She just does so much, Yemoja, that is, for your wave pressure. You can not only just deal more damage to the wave than the majority of the support cast, but also displacement with Riptides makes it a little bit difficult to clear out the waves as a Tartarus Titan. Vote pulled in, that's good damage.
That's going to be a poison dart onto 2. NeilMah takes a lot of damage, and so does Vote, so that's some good pressure now back for the Tartarus Titans. So what will they be able to do with that in the dual lane? Can they secure this wave out ahead of time, maybe go towards this Arthurian Harpy still over there, or maybe towards their own Serpent camps? We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, a jump over by Nika from SOT. Layers is here, and so is QvoFred. A 2v2 in the solo lane. Goes over to Layers. The extra damage helping him out, and it's the Tartarus Titans with first blood.
Salmon leaps down. Layers says, bet, I'm in there. Blinks forward, connects the pin, and from there, Nika's life was forfeit. TP comes in quickly, but that blue buff is going pretty fast itself. Layers able to secure that and believe SOT is still in range was able to get that farm as well. But can they secure their own with Nika hot on pursuit?
Nika on the way. QvoFred right next to him. Layers is full HP. And even with SOT at half, still has quite a bit of mana to his name, quite a bit of abilities at his disposal. We'll use the first couple. The blue buff will be stolen away, and SOT's health bar is looking worse for wear. Layers misses the Mink form transformation, and that'll be the disengage now. So 1 kill to the Tartarus Titans. Nets them a blue buff, but then they end up losing their blue buff in return.
So blue for blue trade, but the Tartarus Titans still coming out ahead. Should be able to reset themselves. Which one of these junglers can clear out their own jungle quicker? Looks like Layers, because he's already there. QvoFred sticking around, trying to maintain that totem of coup. So farm will favor the Tartarus Titans. Clear your buffs faster, they respawn faster, which means you can do them again faster. Speed buff dropped down already. Layers headed back to base, so much better pace for him in the jungle as of now. Should be able to finish off any item he so chooses. I had thought it would be Stone Cutting Sword. We've been seeing a whole lot of that recently, especially if you're trying to get aggressive early on. Instead, Golden Blade in the first slot for Layers. Going to give you a whole lot of farm. Another surprising decision. I guess when your entire jungle is down, doesn't really matter which side of the map you start to move over towards. I suppose Layers has set up his tent in the Soul Lane.
It's a rarity that we see everything in the jungle down at one time, whether it be XP Harpies or a buff camp. Layers will rotate back over towards mid. There's only 1 camp still up in neutral territory to take, but Paul and Layers won't go towards. They're going to leave that mid camp on the left side up and maybe start a brawl for the one on the right. But Paul, a little bit low on mana himself, probably doesn't have too many abilities to stick around and keep using. Thankfully for him, Layers does have that Mannequin Scepter. He'll clear it out rather quickly. Now if you are Layers in this position, you got the 1 kill up on the QvoFred, you got some of the pressure in the solo. Mifflin, where do you think Layers tries to put that pressure now that he has? Does he keep going to solo or move over to mid?
I think the Morrigan is always a great target. Slow down hyper carries, always just a great option for these junglers, but as far as highest kill potential now that Changeling is up, it might still be Nika. You might just be rotating over towards Nika continually. If Salmon Leap is down, he really doesn't have any options. So Layers, with the help of SOT on this King Arthur, could lock down Nika in this lane. Otherwise, rotations over towards the duo lane. Never fun to play against a Jing as a jungler. Airstrike just kind of beats every option you've got. So it's either going to be in mid or in the soul lane. If I had to guess, I'd bet we see him over in the solo.
For now, he'll group up to the Pyromancer. SOT half HP. Darkest of Nights used because Layers is going in. Transformation out of Dardez gets the Spirit Ball, a dunk in, Circle Protection, not enough damage to take down Layers. But that's Changeling now down for Dardez. Maybe that is just the opening that Layers needs to go back.
Yeah, I was wondering what Changeling was going to be on, because I'm looking at the map and, like, there's deceptive good transformations, late game phenomenal transformations. I'm imagining we see a whole lot of double Ravana for the Oni Warriors. But at current level, not really the greatest transformations. If you turn into Layers, you've got maxed pin, which not the worst, not the best. It's more so about those auto attacks. You're at least benefiting from Mannequin Scepter. Transform into Nika. You've got maxed Vent Anger. Yeah,
Ooh,
that's real nice.
That's good power.
Transform into SOT. Max second ability. That's neither the premier abilities for King Arthur either. So, turning into Paul might just be best option. Max Spirit Ball. Good damage, good stun, good initiation. I think Dardez has got it locked down.
We'll have to see where he goes on the second transformation at the very least. Doom Orb is now finished up for Dardez, so there's an extra boon to movement speed for him. Paul finished up his Warlock staff on the other side, has already begun stacking that one up. And it really feels that that's just become the tradition of the mid lane for majority of mages, has been to keep this Warlock staff up, even despite some of the changes that we've seen in some of the items come around towards mid.
Hey, HP, mana, power, penetration, MP5. It's everything you want except for CDR. Warlock Staff is just an incredibly strong item, especially with these hunters kind of straying away from the kin size build. You don't even have to really worry about the HP infusion giving over additional damage to your enemy. So keep building it until it gets changed or nerfed.
Vote dashes away from the aggression out of the Titans, who are playing very heavy up on the left side of the map. Purple buff will be stolen away, so that'll be a benefit over towards CycloneSpin, who will have a buff compared to Vote for next couple of minutes. Still taking a look at the builds. It seems that it will be Stonecutting Sword maybe coming next for Layers now as he's starting up into his second Katana tree.
Yeah, I'm thinking Layers is probably just going to go towards the exact same itemization we saw previously. Could be Stonecutting Sword, immediately into like a Heavy Executioner, Toxic Blade, just the standard. I believe it was Berserker Shield in that slot, actually. Just get your auto attacks rolling. Make sure you're dealing the damage that you need. Maybe he could forego Toxic Blade this time around. A little bit less healing overall for the Oni Warriors, but still would be pretty decent value.
Oh, SOT, low on mana. You may have just used the last of it, the root from max range, but there was just enough left in the tank for SOT to use that last ability to dash back under the safety of the Tier 1 tower. No further initiation from the Oni Warriors. Means that as you take a look at the state of the game, about 1,300 gold up for the Tartarus Titans. Good bit of that, at least on the First Blood experience. Not too far up there either, only about a 1K experience lead. Fairly even so far at this point of the game, Mifflin.
Yeah, I wonder where the majority of that experience gap is. Is it CycloneSpin over in that duo lane? He's got about a 1-level lead there. Otherwise, a good deal of parity across the map. XP needed. That's a lot of math. Instead, I'd rather look at the action on the screen. Unfortunately, not bailed out. Layers just connects the pin and just walks himself out of there. This pacing of game probably favors the Tartarus Titans. You're getting to that point where Circle Protection with a full stacked Warlock Staff is a massive threat on these objectives. We're about a minute out from Pyromancer respawning, or spawning for the first time, rather. So I'm thinking the Tartarus Titans happy to just slow it down for about a minute, and then we'll see exactly what we saw in the mid-game in the previous match. Just run it down on these objectives and realize that you've got a cheap coin, a liar's coin, a weighted coin on every single one of these objectives.
With Paul there being the main owner of that coin. Though grouping around the red buff. Spear ball over the wall, just a little too shy to land that one, so Dardez will get to hold on to his own buff. Is Paul going for a second item, Staff of Muzen? That seems rather early to pick that item up.
With the Muzen changes, I mean, I don't hate it. I wonder how it interacts with Eset's Circle Protection. Is it I drop Circle Protection and now also that's dealing 25% more damage immediately? Or is it after it pops afterward? Either way, I mean, it's just a good stat stick.
Invade at the purple buff. Goes over to the Oni Warriors. That one stolen away by QvoFred and co. Dash in by Aror will catch NeilMah. Not a whole lot of follow-up from CycloneSpin. A root onto Aror and not a whole lot of follow-up onto Aror. Just both these teams poking at whoever gets hit by any kind of CC. Vote out of mana, though. Could be dangerous. Darkest Knights and the Poison Darts. That should be a kill onto the Jing Wei. CycloneSpin credited for that one. And NeilMah with no Omi to his name. Nothing left to defend. And all the while, the Tartarus Titans taking the Pyromancer on the right side of the map. With the ultimate there by Paul. That one is as good as theirs. Maybe a little early on the pop, but the Titans will still grab it.
Yeah, nobody nearby to even try and punish them for the early Circle Protection. And I think a good play from the Tartarus Titans, individual play from Aror to set up from that kill. Vote steps a little too far forward, doesn't have a whole lot of mana to play with, and Aror says probably shouldn't have been here. CycloneSpin actually using Darkest of Nights not just to blind everybody, which that's what it does, but extends those auto attack ranges for Xbalanque. Wasn't quite in range to follow up on the abduct, so what's he do? I'll just make him go a little bit further.
It's a little bit more out there, and a little bit more movement speed, which isn't...
Does that say 40 feet?
Yeah, you go 40 feet further. That's a...
What? But in Smite, we measure by units.
We do measure by unit
so
as far as I'm concerned.
What's a unit to foot conversion?
I guess it's just 1-to-1 in this case. 95 feet.
Wow.
That he can throw a bola.
Yeah, nearly doubles that auto attack
I could barely
range.
throw a baseball 95 feet some days.
I couldn't tell you, man. I'm 6 feet. Could I throw him 15 of me?
15 of you. If you lay down 15 times on a field, could you throw a baseball that far?
Yeah, I'm strong.
I can throw a baseball that far. I definitely maybe a football I could.
QvoFred.
He's out. Maybe. Rising Dawn, not quite enough. Mannequin's not enough either. Oni Warriors. Soul Laner makes it out. SOT pushed under the tower. No concern by him. He's got Soul Eater and some physical defense online. Not often do we see Soul Eater on King Arthur.
Yeah, he's going to get a whole lot of ability lifesteal and plenty of abilities to deal damage with. Generally, though, we'll see like Sovereignty into Glad Shield, and you've got enough damage there that you don't really need to itemize towards it elsewhere. I suppose with minimal healers on your team and minimal healing in the build from CycloneSpin, this is one way for the Tartarus Titans to kind of force anti-heal purchases from the Oni Warriors. Maybe you have to concern yourself with some of that self-sustain that SOT's got. But you're right to say, unorthodox certainly in the build.
And not even going towards Glad Shield, which is typically the next go-to item. Instead, getting some magical defense to deal with Dardez and NeilMah. I'll have to keep my eyes on SOT's build as we keep an eye on the mid lane fight happening. CycloneSpin rotating over. The pin hits QvoFred, who's just strolling away, but doesn't have beads to get away from the taunt in. QvoFred low in the back line, but CycloneSpin low in the front line. He will go down. A 1-for-1 trade. Not the most ideal trade out for the Tartarus Titans, but if they can find some more, could be beneficial. Unfortunately, they're trying to chase the Yemoja, not the easiest god to do so.
Yeah, Paul knows circle protection, so SOT, who had made the rotation, will probably just head on back towards his lane. If Paul holds on to that cooldown, even in the 1-for-1 trade, with SOT there, could have been potentially a Gold Fury, but not going to be the case without that ultimate. Still showing a whole lot of presence in mid, though, are the Tartarus Titans. SOT keeping me guessing on exactly what the call is. Instead, just going to try and steal away as much farm as possible. Good trade for the Oni Warriors. Taking a kill on a CycloneSpin, that bounty, pretty worthwhile.
Definitely going to help them out as we even take a look up at the gold. It's still sitting about 2,300 up for the Tartarus Titans. XP drops down just a little bit because of the kill that the Oni Warriors were able to grab. Only 1,800 up now. And SOT still playing aggressive in the top side of the jungle. A pull in onto Nika. Triple ultimate out of Nika. Double root as he's transformed in. Uses his ultimate to catch Aror out. Layers separated from the fight. SOT will rejoin, pick up one. But there's not going to be much follow-up for him on the ground. QvoFred will be fine. And with the darkest of nights, the Tartarus Titans have been able to get themselves out.
Yeah, both solo laners just playing goaltender against these teams. SOT keeps two back, and Nika does the exact same thing in the lane. Difference is Paul doesn't actually dedicate himself to the rotation. Instead, pushes some waves in towards mid, so slight farm advantage over to the Tartarus Titans mid laner, and Greater Scorpion defended. Players just had to show up.
Pincer, silence is good. Circle protection down. NeilMah taunted back in, and the pop will go on to the support. Paul picks up the kill for the Tartarus Titans, and the Oni Warriors can only sit back and watch. Their support is melted at the hands of the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah, I wonder what NeilMah is thinking there. He's like, what's my counterplay? I don't have beads yet. Counterplay is to simply not be there, I suppose. Didn't even have the bracer up just yet. Actually spawns or comes back off cooldown post-mortem, so no additional movement speed or power for his team in that exchange. That combo from the Tartarus Titans, pretty simple. If you don't have CC immunity, pin, oh, they're pinned, circle protection drop, taunt them back in, spirit ball, you're stuck, and then you're dead.
An easy 1-2, or I guess, what was that, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe something like
brutal.
that. But
that is a 5-piece combo, brutal.
yeah, that's a 5-piece I don't want to have to pick up. That's one I'd rather have on my side of the field. Tartarus Titans starting with a very strong early game and a very strong matchup against the Oni Warriors in this set today. QvoFred not even allowed to walk through his own jungle as SOT has decided that he has made it his jungle at this point. No puffs for him to grab. Maybe he can steal a speed buff away. This is just wild play from SOT. He is all over this map, but maybe that's just the setup for the fact that Pyromancer was awake, and the Tartarus Titans can grab that with zero contest.
That's the second one to go their way. No fight back from the Oni Warriors. SOT still showing presence on this side of the map, but thinks better of it. The Oni Warriors slow on the rotation, will at least be there to defend their blue buff. And SOT, who has been playing wild all game, not wild enough to take a 1v4 low odds trade on the blue buff. So resets himself, and the Tartarus Titans quietly extend their lead once more. Tale of two games. Tartarus Titans controlling objectives on the right-hand side of the map. Vote kind of bullying on the left-hand side of the map, keeping CycloneSpin inside of that tower, but no XP disparity, builds roughly the same as well. CycloneSpin finally makes his way back to base, finishes up that fail knot, should match the crit presence that Vote has got from the Wind Demon. So even on the side of the map that's going well for the Oni Warriors, it's not going so exceedingly well that you really want to play through them. Instead, gotta stem that bleeding somewhere else.
You know what else, the Tale of Two Coins, Mifflin? My fantasy team. I get 1 week where I get a really good matchup out of one player, and then 1 week where I don't get a whole lot from another one so far. I got some pop-off games with Stewart. Not quite getting that same pop-off from QvoFred this time around.
Players here?
Yeah, I got Kuvo this time.
Oh.
Not going as hot, at least.
Unlucky.
Not this time. At least I got a good game out of Genetics in the previous set. Some good points out of there, but
I don't know if I have any players here, man.
I
just know if I'm winning on the week or if I'm losing. That's all I need to know.
I will say, I haven't won a week yet, but the last time I checked in with Gore, I was at the top from everybody, which is very surprising considering I hadn't won
even
one.
the Hindu man tag.
Pretty much, except Hinduman actually won a week this time. He won this last week because he had 3 Leviathans, and the Titans have 5 players on the left side. The Gold Fury will go to them. The River's Rebuke out. SOT picks up Vote. The Vote will be down instantly. Not a whole lot of damage thrown out the way except on the SOT. He'll have to back himself away, but now the Nika has joined the fray. An unfortunate Riptide actually puts him back and puts Kuvo in a horrible spot. The Layers picks up the first kill. SOT still alive throughout all of this. Dardez might be the next one to go down. Quarter HP, but gets a good heal from the 9 turns plus the other one he turned into. NeilMah pulled back in, but it'll Riptide on out, and Vote will trade out to take out SOT.
Nika up against the entirety of the Tartarus Titans, and well, he might be nuts, but he's not that crazy. The Titans take the objective and the fight afterward. SOT will eventually fall down, but he got an unreasonable amount of value in that fight. Solo ultimate from NeilMah onto SOT. SOT turns around on a dime, says, guess I'm stuck, so I'll deal some damage. Sticks around in the fight, holds on to the empowered ultimate until he knows that ultimate is closing from NeilMah, picks up Vote, even forces the bead, so it's an early cancel on the empowered King Arthur ultimate, but still avoids Yemoja's damage. Just crazy plays. Rotates back through, waits for the stealth from Dardez, knocks him up out of it, finds a 2-man knockup. SOT's he's a robot,
he's
man.
A lunatic.
He's a literal android. When we talk about mechanical players, he's just a mechanical guy.
Quite literally sometimes.
He's just being a guy.
Always continues to impress out of SOT in the solo lane. QvoFred pinned out by Layers, and as soon as he sees that Spirit Ball, he knows that the remaining 3 pieces of that combo are on its way, so he'll back away with the ultimate. Fire Giant, started by the Tartarus Titans. SOT playing the gatekeeper for his squad. Nika has walked his way in, circle of protection down, and the Fire Giant goes to the Tartarus Titans. Will the fight go their way? It might be so, with Nika going down right away. Taunt on the NeilMah, but most of that is immune out, but now he's still stuck in the middle of 5, and Pop goes to support Aror. Credit for the kill.
The Tartarus Titans strategy of playing around this Eset is just so hard to contend with. The answer that we've seen some teams come up with in the past, specifically against the Camelot Kings when they've done it, not many teams have got an answer for the Camelot Kings, but it's all around this Ankh from NeilMah. You gotta get in there, you gotta pop that Ankh, and find that passive. Usually you want it empowered, maybe even like a miasma or something like that, and then you have to take the fight afterward. Actually stealing an objective from Eset, especially with this composition from the Oni Warriors, is long shot odds. So the entire goal is to take the fight after. What happens? Tartarus Titans get the objective and the fight after. I'm thinking the game might follow if that pace continues, especially with this lead so early on.
Yeah, Tartarus Titans with a 9,000 gold lead now, taking down that tier 1 tower in mid, and still a couple more to go to continue to line their pockets. 9k XP still mattering at this stage of the game. I mean, we're only 20 minutes in, and we've just now hit our first level 20 player. CycloneSpin
the golden
has
pocket.
grabbed that one. And 3k, 2,500 for a few players. That's a lot of items, so much that Paul was able to go back and buy a full Soul Reaver.
Yeah, so that gold lead on the top of your screen wasn't even in play around that fight, around that Fire Giant. That was all in pocket for the Tartarus Titans, so significant power spikes hit for just about every single individual member. CycloneSpin still sitting on about 1,000, but couldn't finish up that item. Instead, will likely get that opportunity once these tier 2s start to fall down. The Oni Warriors defense, and it's a conversation we have every single time there's a Morrigan on the map, if she falls behind, is that you're lacking an orthodox mage. Dark Omen, not really the best at keeping these waves out, not really the best poke tool in some of these fights, especially when you're contending with Fire Giant healing on one side. So it's all about that spearhead engagement. Can Nika find a multi-man knockup? How many people is QvoFred slamming with his ultimate? Who's Dardez transforming into? Because that changeling is going to be the entirety of the value from this Morrigan. I think it's all about how this fight starts for the Oni Warriors.
Well, it's going to start with Nika going in and finding a couple with his ult, but no follow-up. Transformation by Nika, and now he's on a timer until he'll be less valuable yet again. Blink is down for Nika, so he can't go in on that engagement. He has to go in on his own merit, but that allows the Tartarus Titans to walk in. A River's Rebuke will catch 3 in the middle, but Paul has already taken NeilMah completely out of the fight. QvoFred will ult to get on out. SOT picks up one and forces the beat down to Dardez, but as soon as Dardez gets out of the changeling, he is gone. Layers finds the second kill. QvoFred goes down. The damage is too much, and it's only Vote and Nika left to defend against the Titan, but there are 5 players from the Tartarus Titans pushing in, and there is just too much damage. Vote hit by the Spirit Ball, walks the wrong way, walks to his own death, and Nika will sit by and watch as his Titan falls for the second game. Layers does get pushed into the fountain. That'll be a nice little one trade out for Nika, but that's going to be the end of the game. The Tartarus Titans will be able to take the 2-0 over the Oni Warriors, and in just 23 minutes.
And this is why we as casters beg the Tartarus Titans to just play the normal stuff, be boring. Because this is what happens. That wasn't the Valks, that wasn't the Scarabs, that was the Oni Warriors. And they got slammed in 22 minutes, and it was not particularly close. Every team fight, every objective goes to the Tartarus Titans. I want to see more of it. Let's get CycloneSpin on these Hunters more often. Let's get SOT on these standard Initiator Warriors. And you might just see a good deal more of exactly what we just got to watch.
I'm going to echo the concerns. I mean, we've been seeing these Bologna ADCs, these Ama ADCs, Zulor and Poseidon in solo lane, and it just wasn't working. I mean, they went like 6 or 7 games doing it, and it worked out, I think, like
maybe once?
Twice at best? If we're going to see more of this out of Tartarus Titans with these kinds of drafts, I'm going to say the same thing, Mifflin. More of that, please, because this is what is more so akin to the Masters Titans that we were used to, not this kind of weaker portion of the phase Titans that we got a little bit more accustomed to now. But that's all that we've got to say, at least here on the cast. We'll throw it over to the desk to close out the day.
Well, that's right, 2 2-0s today, Trelly. We managed to end this one with a very convincing game from the Titans. They come into it, and again, game 1, back and forth. They win a really good fight towards the end. That solidifies their victory there. This one, they just win damn near everything. Not even damn near. They just win everything. And it becomes a lot more convincing. I mean, at the end, you're looking at it, tons of kills on one side, lots of map control on one side. Hey, guess what? Neutral objectives, one side. The Titans just seemed to know what they wanted when they came into this.
Now I know what Kuvo Neil were talking about when I said who's going to get more kills, and they said no.
No one.
Yeah, they were talking about the Titans.
And that game, no one. They both had 0.
They were talking about the Titans, and they were talking about CycloneSpin finally getting on the Hunters. That's got to be the conversation, right? Because he's been playing, the Bolognas, the Amaterasus, and it wasn't finding so much success. Turns out when he plays, the things like the Xbalanque, the Cupid, he's going to look pretty darn good in the late game. Layers got off to a great start on this Erlang. 2 games in a row. Obviously, he was able to first blood Kuvo before the game even started last time, and then once again, this Erlang Shen finding so much success. This just seemed like it was everything that the Titans wanted draft-wise, right? They got to run back Paul and Aror on the Eset and the Khepri, obviously the Erlang Shen as well for Layers. It just seems like they got exactly what they wanted, and then they were able to come out swinging, and they never really dropped it. I mean, once they came out and they were able to get that lead, it just didn't stop. As the casters highlighted, it was just a snowball that kept on rolling.
Yeah, once you pop, you just don't stop. The thing they were popping, Eset ults, all sorts of stuff. It just goes in their favor. And again, I mean, you had kind of highlighted it. It didn't feel like the Warriors had like really good lanes to try and gank. A lot of survival capabilities for them early on. And then it was around here. I mean, look at this. You're 17 minutes in, 5-2, 6-2. Kills maybe don't matter that much. 4,000 gold difference, right? I mean, it's just the farm and the play from the Titans early on that led to such a very convincing win. CycloneSpin looks really good. Layers looks really good. Paul's 2-0-6. Auror's 1-0-10. They all look like they just are able to find themselves kind of back in the form we expected more out of them.
Yeah, no doubt. At the beginning of this phase, this is the Titans that I expected to see. And it's good to finally see them back into their own style of drive. And this was sort of the theory, right? We didn't know, what kind of comp they were going to be looking for. Once this mid-season patch dropped, I figured they've probably done their, their own little practice, and they figure out what kind of draft they're looking for. And, I would love to hear some insight about, the difference maker, because, I mean, CycloneSpin's putting out 20k damage back on the Xbalanque. It's like he never left.
Yeah, it's exciting, again, just to be able to watch, especially because, at least for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you out there, look, Oni Warriors fans, I can understand, probably a little unhappy. Titans fans, very happy. I think people who are just enjoying watching good Smite against each other are incredibly happy as well, because the shakeup this is going to cause in the standings, bringing the Warriors down, the Titans back up a little bit, kind of keeps everybody, I mean, you've got the Kings up at the top right now.
Of course.
Then the Bolts a little ahead. Now with this, that everybody else up from 3 to 5 to 6, they're all going to be right next to each other. I'm excited to see how that means, especially as we're starting to get towards the sunset of this phase, in towards Masters, things like that. You know what? Who better to talk to about how things are going for them, how things have been, and to talk to Paul over here for the post-game interview. Now, Paul, I know most of the time you're just gaming. So I'm gonna actually ask some questions more about like the picks that have been going on, because we were talking about it. A lot of Warriors for CycloneSpin in the last couple of weeks. Not as many wins for you guys. Changing it up today, was that? Do you contribute that to your success, or do you think that there was something in those old drafts?
I don't know. I think there might be. It's just something he wanted to play, so I don't know. I just rolled with it. But I don't know. He wanted to play Hunters today, so I'm like, okay, let's go with that. But yeah, I know. I felt like that was pretty good. I mean, we've been losing most of the time, but we won now, so pretty good.
Well, you guys come in, and game one, the Warriors get like Fire Giant. They've got you guys kind of knocked up against the base.
Yeah.
You move forward. You unfortunately died in the last fight, but the rest of the team, is able to get it. It's kind of like this separation, and they win there. And then game two is just so clean. What was it that you guys changed going into game two to make it so much nicer?
I think we just played better, dude. I don't know, dude. One was the warm-up game, and then game two, we're a little bit in it more. Yeah, I know. I just woke up before the game, so it's like, that's the warm-up game, man.
Paul, I mean this like very kind-heartedly. I think you are the like epitome, like the dream. Like any SMITE player out there that's like, I want to be an SBL player. I think they want to just be you. Like, because
really?
I think you woke up, you came in, you 2-0, you look good while you're playing. He said, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and then now you just get to relax the rest of the day. Maybe there's some VOD review or something, but it feels really good. And we're getting see, look, it's perfect. Be like Paul. Now we're going into the second half, or towards the end of the phase, looking towards Masters. You guys looked incredible in Phase 1 Masters. Are you more thinking at this point of the LAN and what you're going to do then, or is it still game by game, set by set?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've been kind of like chilling a bit for like the league games, like not going like super duper like try hard, or like we could have definitely like put like more effort into it, but right now I don't know. That's my answer.
You don't want to burn out, right? You don't want to burn out in the
100%.
middle of Phase 2. You want to keep it for when it matters, get the bonuses around the LAN time, and of course pop off around Worlds.
Yep.
Congrats on your win, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Have a good night. Enjoying whatever you do.
Thank you. You
too.
too. Bye.
I'm telling you, and I genuinely mean it. I think that's like the dream. Like when people say they want to go pro, that's the dream. They like he woke up and played that well. Yeah. You know how hard I'd have to work to do half of that?
I truthfully can't tell.
I love Paul.
I can't tell if the team as a whole is just like, let's just send Paul because we know he's going to reveal absolutely nothing about our strat. He's just going to go out there and be like,
I don't even know if Paul's present for some of the conversations.
I don't know. Paul's probably, he's got his headset muted, and then he's just got music blasting, and he's just like, I'm just going to play my own game. Hopefully by the end of it, we'll win. That's sort of the play style, and it seems to be working for him. I mean, it worked today at least.
That's exactly, right? You can't argue with results, and that's exactly what we're looking at right here. Here's the schedule. Again, that is the last set today. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. We've been starting at 1 the last couple of days. Make sure you're tuning in when we kick off Leviathans and Dragons. Kings and the Scarabs in the middle of the day, tentatively around 1, and then the Bolts and the Valks will close us out for this weekend. And then, only 2 more weeks left of Phase 2 after that. That's wild to think about,
crazy.
Considering how fast we're moving through the year. The standings, though, this is where things are going to get incredibly interesting. Again, the change-up for a lot of this. 1, it means that now at 5-5, tied with the Leviathans, so we've got 2 fourth-place teams that are going to be trying to vie their spots a little bit forward. But again, look at 3rd through 6th. 4-5, 5-5, 5-5, and 6-4. They are very close to each other as of right now. Leviathans, Dragons tomorrow has a chance to maybe separate some of that a little bit. And then, with the Scarabs, considering how they've been playing, I feel like they can at least take some shots at a few of those teams right now. So it's a good day if you're a Kings fan, because it feels like they have gotten by and far ahead of the pack, and they're probably sitting pretty up at first for a little while. The Bolts maybe going to try to chase them down. But we're going to have to find all of that out. Again, only a few more sets, a few more weeks of Phase 2. And of course, we're excited to see it. From myself, from Trelly, from everyone in production, thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you tomorrow at 11.